Thank you for tuning into the Short Stacks. I'm Lisa Quintero, Young Adult Librarian.
And I'm Lizzie Jelly, Virtual Engagement Librarian.
This is the show where we talk to you about what we've been reading, listening to, or watching. And today we are going to be talking about graphic novels.
Yes, so excited. A little bit of what we've been reading and watching, because
Yes.
there are so many graphic novels that have been turned into movies and TV series lately.
Yes.
That we got to talk about it.
Yeah, so did you want to get us started off with one of the ones that you read? You read Heartstopper, right?
Yes, I did.
And how many volumes of that are there right now?
So there's currently 4.
Okay.
I know there's a 5th one coming,
Okay.
but oh my gosh, y'all know I loved it, right?
Yeah.
Because I love romance, I love rom-coms, and I love like YA romances, and it's everything I could want and more. There's 4 volumes out now. The first one came out in 2020, so it's still relatively new, and it's recently been adapted as a Netflix series as well. The first season kind of covers the first 2 volumes. They're super quick reads, which is awesome, but also you can like reread them. I like read them all like 3 times before I brought them back to the library, so sorry if you've been looking for them. They were at my house, all 4 of them. So.
And they're a queer romance, right? Like
they are.
Is it 2 teenage boys?
Yes, it is. Okay, so it's a coming of age LGBTQ romance, and it's a lot about like coming out, discovering who you are, navigating like high school bullies and homophobia, and also rugby. Okay. Because both of our main characters, Nick and Charlie, they play rugby.
Oh, awesome.
It's really cute, actually, and they're like very much like not even like a sunshine and grump trope. They're both just like little cute sunshines who play sports and are adorable and love dogs and just like go on cute little dates and like discover who they are. And it's so, I don't even, like my notes are literally just in all caps, so cute, so sweet, so wholesome. Like I recommend it to everybody. But at the same time, like, so they're going through like high school, like they meet, Nick is a year older than Charlie, and Charlie is in like 10th grade, our equivalent. It's set in the UK, so the language is a little different. Their school system works a little differently, but like essentially they're like 15 and 16. Okay. And at this point, Nick is not out, isn't really like thinking about his identity in that way, and Charlie has been out as gay for a year. Okay. At the point when they first meet. And so Nick is like trying to navigate what it is to like have feelings for another boy and like what that means for him and his sexuality. And eventually he settles on like bisexual is making sense for him, but it's really like you get to watch him like kind of go through that like, I don't know what any of these words mean. I gotta look them up. And you see him like Googling it on his phone, like, what is bisexual? And it's so like, it's just adorable the way they present it in like a very safe and sweet and wholesome kind of way. Yeah. But also,
it makes sense for like that age group that, you know, you wouldn't necessarily know all these things, and you would be like looking into what does this mean and who am I as a person? And
absolutely. Like, you got to learn it somewhere, right? At some time. Yeah. And so it's like, it's cool to watch them navigate it in a really like honest way, as well as like, of course, you know, it's part of like the queer discovery arc that you have to like Google all these terms at some point to figure out what it all means. So it's cool to like see that incorporated into the story. But on top of that, just besides it just being very cute and wholesome, it does cover some very serious growing up teenage themes as well. Like there's a lot of discussion about like bullying and like what happens when your friend is the bully, and like how you step in and kind of intervene and what that looks like for the future. There's discussion of like some really difficult family relationships and different family structures, which is really cool. Yeah. They also, in the 4th volume, they have a really interesting conversation about like relationship dependency. Okay. And how like their parents kind of talk to Nick and Charlie. They're like, you two are getting very dependent on each other, and it's good to like talk to your other friends and like know that your partner is not your only support system. Yeah.
And I was like, can't be your whole world. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, this is like kind of deep for a YA, but so important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially because at that age, it's really easy to let that other person become your whole world.
Exactly.
Like, it's just us against the world.
Oh, yep. And they're like, that's the only person you talk to about anything serious. And that's a lot of pressure, right? And also it's not, you do better with a whole support system. And so there's really great moments where they like, you know, get together to like talk to their parents about difficult things in their lives. And I'm like, wow, this is like such healthy relationship modeling. Awesome. I love it so much. And it's still like, it's so cute. It's so romantic. I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, I really want to check it out. And I've heard a lot of good things about the show too, so I'm curious about the show.
It is. And the art style is like this really cute, like monochromatic watercolor, and there's like little like leaves that flow through and little butterflies. It's like, it's just adorable. It's so like, I just open it and like my heart just explodes. Like my heart was stopped by Heartstopper.
There you go. Yeah, Yeah, so one of the ones that I read actually isn't based on a show, but it was inspired by the fact that I watched Reservation Dogs, like the first 2 seasons.
Yes.
And it is a band that I did not realize was a Native American band until it was brought up on Reservation Dogs. And I was like, oh, wait, I know that song. And then there's this graphic novel that came out. It came out in 2020. But yeah, it's the story of the band Redbone. And if you're not familiar, you think you don't know, you might actually know, because they're the ones who sing, come and get your love, ooh, come and get your love. That's my terrible rendition of their song.
No, it was so good.
So, the 60s, 70s, rock and disco, and it was really interesting reading about them, because originally they started out with all the members that were in it were indigenous, but in order to get shows, they told people they were Mexican. And they're from California. And so they would, get these gigs at different clubs and stuff. And I can't remember what the name of their band was, but it was like some, like the Lopez band or something like that. That's not the exact name, but that was, something like that. Yeah. Because they thought that they would be more likely to get booked that way because of the large Latino population in California, Southern California area.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then over time, a couple of them got more involved with indigenous rights activism and things like that. And they talked to somebody who was like, or they talked to Jimi Hendrix. And yeah, they did.
Casual.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because, they talks about a bunch of different musicians that they knew. They talked to Jimi Hendrix, and Jimi Hendrix was like, you guys need to put out there that you're actually indigenous. People would love this, and they need to understand your struggles, and they need to understand what's going on, because the graphic novel covers a lot of what's been going on in North Dakota and South Dakota with like the pipelines and stuff, and that stuff has been going on since like not even the 60s, since before then, because
decades,
of the reservations and the land rights being taken away from people, and some of the corruption that was happening in the tribe itself, and how it affected the Oglala community up there. And so, they talk about Standing Rock happening. There's like some stuff that happened with Standing Rock back in the 60s and 70s, and it led to them singing a protest song about it. And they actually got invited to be on, a few different music shows, but they were told that they couldn't sing that song. Ooh. But they did the rock and roll thing and like sang the song anyway, which is always that. Like, yes. And, and like a lot of bands, eventually they had some disagreements and they fell apart, but it talks about, kind of how they formed their friendships, how they got to be a band, how they started with certain kinds of songs and then eventually morphed into adding more political stuff, and, how they found their identity as a band. And apparently they had a lot of other hits besides the song that I sang. And I'm really curious to check out more of their music. And so, yeah, if you're into music history, you're into Indigenous history, American history, this is a great one. And I learned a lot, because I remember the Standing Rock stuff happening a few years ago, but I didn't realize that these are some conflicts and there's a whole history behind it that goes back to the 60s in terms of how the land was managed and all that sort of stuff. And I knew that reservations and that whole system is messed up, but I didn't realize that the Standing Rock stuff has been
like the long
going
history.
on for so long. Yeah. So yeah, that one is by Christian Stabler, Sonia Paulini, and Tybalt Balahi. And yeah, the main guy that wrote it is actually French, and he is like super into the band and like looked into, like got really deep into their discography and like
so cool.
interviewed like different members of the band to talk about their lives and where they are now and what kind of how they feel about Indigenous stuff that's going on right now. And yeah, so it was really good.
That's so cool. I'm gonna have to check that one out too.
Yeah. So what's one of the other ones that you read?
Okay, well, you know me, and 99% of what I read is romance. So I read another romance graphic novel. No one is surprised. But I read the first 3 volumes of Lore Olympus by Rachel Smith. This one's really interesting because it came out as a webtoon years and years ago, and it still is to this day, I think, the most like read and popular webcomic in existence.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
Oh my, Lisa.
I think I ordered them. But
you did. I saw them on the shelf and I was like, thank goodness, because I need them in this library and in my life.
Yes, so many things come across my desk and I'm like, wait, So I have heard of it, but yes, apparently I forgot about it. So
it's
tell
a
me more.
sensation. Oh my gosh, like people are really into Lore Olympus. There's 3 volumes, like physical volumes out so far. The first one came out in 2021. So the physical volumes are super, super recent. And each volume has like 25 episodes, I guess you could call it, because like there's like weekly episodes with the webcomic. And so like they're compiled in that way. And so for me, as someone who's followed the webcomic for years, it was really interesting to see how that format translated. And I think it actually works really well. Because the art style for Lore Olympus is very like digital watercolor and flowy, and like when it's first released online, you're meant to like scroll through it continuously. And so to see that translate on the page is really cool. The way they like manipulated and morphed the art to work with that. I loved it. And it's very like, it's got very striking artwork. Like every, I should probably tell you what it's based on. It's a Hades and Persephone retelling. So it follows like the Olympians, but like living in the modern day.
Yeah,
if that
now
makes
I can
sense.
Picture one of the covers and like,
once it's in your head, you're like, oh yeah, duh. Like they all have cell phones on their computers. Like Persephone like goes to university, and like Hades is like a businessman kind of thing. But yeah, it's a very slow burn, and it has a really big like cast of like all the Olympians and stuff. So there's a ton of characters, but each character has their own color palette, and like the whole palette of the comic shifts with the mood of like
that.
It's really cool. It's really like stylized, and I think that's why I like it. And like because Persephone is goddess of spring, like plants kind of show her emotions in that way. So like the kinds of like foliage that pop up around her are indicative of the vibes in the comic, or like her mood and like her relationship. It's really cool. But it's what's it called? It's very cute. It's very funny. There's lots of humor in it, but there are some like what's it called? Some more serious themes that come up. Like there's lots of discussion of like sexual assault, because we're talking about Olympic history, our Olympic folklore.
Yeah, the Greek myths are not.
And they
not
don't they don't sugarcoat it. It is there. It's not graphic, but like it is discussed. So like be aware of that going in, because like one of the first scenes, that's what you're gonna see. But it's really balanced, I think, with a lot of like lighthearted humor, and like Hades' dogs show up a lot, and they're so cute because like everyone knows Cerberus, but in this comic he has like 13 dogs or something, and they're everywhere from like giant Cerberus, I don't know what kind of breed he's supposed to be, but like this little like puffy Pomeranian as well, who's like the most vicious one. But they're really cute, and it's really colorful and bright, and I just whipped through them. You know, like I checked out volume 1. I think I read it in 45 minutes, and I was like, I got to do it again. Just like Heartstopper. So if you're looking for like a quick kind of romantic read with bright colors, cool energy, I definitely recommend it.
Okay, cool. So the next one that I read is, and also in true Lisa fashion, this one is, more sci-fi and a little bit darker.
Oh, yes.
So I read a long time ago the series Sweet Tooth, which is now a Netflix series, and it's actually been renewed for a second season, which I'm super excited about because I really enjoyed the first season. So this came out over a decade ago. And so it is the story of a future where there's been this disease, and it has caused these mutations in some of the population, but not all the population. So different people are born with animal traits. And the main character is born with like deer ears and antlers. And then other people, might be born with like a raccoon nose and a tail or things like that. And so they have all these different animal traits, and they also have some of those characteristics of animals where they might be sensitive to, sounds or extra sensitive to light, or just different things that, go with the animal that is associated with them. And so the government ends up implementing this program where they start doing all these studies on all these people who have these genetic differences. And also, some of these people just start disappearing. And so the boy, in the beginning of the series, we find that he's like living out in the woods with his dad, because his dad just took him out to a cabin because he didn't want anything to happen to his son. And so this boy is raised thinking that the world, is a scary place, and he shouldn't ever leave his cabin in the woods. And they do pretty well for themselves for a while, but eventually dad gets sick and dies. And then the boy has to figure out, like, well, what do I do now? And he ventures out of his comfort zone in the cabin in the woods. And it's kind of all about his adventures / misadventures, because along the way there are like, scientists who are looking for him. There's still people who are trying to round these people up. and there's still, confusion about the disease and who can get it and who can't get it, and whether the people with these characteristics are truly human, and sometimes they're not treated as though they're truly human. And it's just, it brings up a lot of questions, like moral questions, and a lot of things about like around compassion and empathy and friendship and loyalty. And it is a really good series. And if the series itself, the graphic novel, since it like ended, over a decade ago, you can read all the graphic novels. If you don't want to spoil the show for yourself, I would suggest just reading like the first one.
Okay.
And then like, then you can watch the first season, and then you can kind of go along with the rest of them. I don't know how close they'll stay to the series or the graphic novels, but so far they've been staying pretty close.
Okay.
And so I really like that. I like when they deviate a little bit, but like it's still mostly the same story. And the TV show I just ordered, it's coming out on DVD from Netflix.
Oh, awesome.
So I just ordered it. So we'll be getting the TV show too. So if you're interested in watching the TV show, it is super cute. The little boy is adorable, and his name is Sweet, or they call him, this guy eventually that he meets along the way calls him Sweet Tooth because he is obsessed with candy bars. Like that is, like, he loves candy. And, it's good and it's bad because sometimes it can be used to lure him to bad places, like E.T. I mean, E.T. wasn't lured to a bad place, but, when they put out the Reese's Pieces for E.T., like, little trail, it's like sometimes, the boy in this, like, he sees the candy and he's like, ooh, candy, doesn't always think through, like, oh, this might be leading somebody bad. Yeah. So, but, and, he starts off very innocent, and as he goes along, he learns more about the world and more about other people, and, he doesn't realize that there's other people like him, but he eventually meets other people like him, and that's all I will say because I don't want to spoil too much.
No, absolutely. I haven't read the graphic novel, but I did watch season 1 of the show, and I was afraid it was going to be kind of scary, and it's got like some scary bits in it, but I really enjoyed it, even as like a scare baby. But it's an emotional roller coaster. Yeah. I was like, it just wrenched me at points, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't, like, no, protect this little child, like.
Yes.
But it's really good.
Yeah. And if you're like an animal lover, you are also like, oh,
I was sobbing at parts of it. I was like, no, put him down.
Yeah. So I see you've got, is that Mooncakes?
Oh, yes, it is. In true fashion, yet another young adult romance. No one is shocked. But I read Mooncakes because it's been recommended to me on my Goodreads over and over and over. It's like, we see that you like paranormal young adult romance that is cute and about witchcraft and a little queer. Okay. Why don't you read this? And I said, fine, I'll do it. Okay, stop suggesting it. And I was like, okay, that's why they suggested it, because it's exactly that. If you want a young adult paranormal queer romance, this is for you, besties. It's like a supernatural romance story between a teen witch named Nova and a teen werewolf named Tam. Okay. And they have to like work together to fight off this horse demon monster that's living in the woods by their town. And there's like a cult that wants to use like Tam's wolf magic to like harness this big scary horse demon. And so they have to come together to defeat it, and it's interesting. It's a lot of like, learning that you're stronger together than you are apart. And there's like some really cool like family discussion as well. Because like Tam is like very estranged from their family because like their stepdad is part of some really bad stuff that I don't want to spoil. But Nova is like, her parents have passed away, so she lives with her 2 grandmas who are also witches, and they like run a little bookstore, and it's like really cute because she's like, oh, you want to see the magic section? And they like go back, and there's like all these books about like 19th century witchcraft, and people are like, whoa. But it's really cute, and it's a lot about like, coming into your own, discovering your identity and what it means to like, leave home, choose to stay home, fight monsters on your own, fight the monsters inside and outside. And it's very colorful, it's very cute, and it's pretty quick paced as well. Like it's like I read through it very quickly, and like the plot, it just zooms right from the get-go. Like you jump in and it's like Tam coming back to town after being away for a bunch of years to find Nova, and then suddenly like, boom, we got to fight this demon. Let's go, besties. And the grandmas are like, great, I'll make a magic cage. Like
So judging by the cover, it looks like is there baking in it?
So here's the disappointment.
Okay.
They have like one very short kind of scene that's centered around food. They have like a mid-autumn celebration where all the family comes and they eat mooncakes. But it's a very brief mention, and it's not really important to the plot.
Okay.
So if you're hoping for like a really cute like kitchen witch romance, this ain't it.
Okay.
But it's still good. It's just different. Like I thought they were going to be like, like, oh, we're going to have a little bakery. But no, they run a bookshop. But it's still really cute and really sweet. But it's, the cooking part is not very, I don't know where the title came from.
Yeah, or why they put that on the cover. Yeah. Because, when I see the cover, it makes me think of Bloom by Kevin Panetta, which is about, a boy who meets another boy who is working at his dad's bakery, and they fall in love.
Right.
And all that stuff. And so I was like, ooh, and I don't know why, but that is, like, a thing that I enjoy. Is like
I love a bakery romance.
Bakery or just, like, cooking in general. Like, Check Please, which is... about a boy who plays hockey, and he loves to bake for all of his hockey teammates, and he ends up falling in love with one of his hockey teammates, and it sounds similar to Heartbreakers. No, or Heartstoppers. They don't bake for each other, but he bakes for everybody else, and like because the boy that he's in love with isn't like out yet, and like
so you have to bake for everybody, but it's really for
yeah.
Look, I brought cupcakes for everybody, but yours is extra special.
Yes, you get an extra one, or yours is like tailored to what you like. And then eventually, they come out as a couple and stuff. But yeah, I love that series. It's super cute.
Also a graphic novel.
Yeah, it's like a little manga, and I can't remember who the author is. She is Nigerian, and so her last name is like Ngozu or something like that. But yeah, we can put it in the link.
We'll add it to the book list.
To the book list, because I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but it is great, and that also started as a webcomic.
I didn't know that. I'm gonna check that out too.
It started as a webcomic. Also, for a while, it was super adorable. I don't think she does it anymore, but she had a Twitter account for the main character.
Cute.
And he would like tweet all these things about the hockey team and stuff while she was like doing the comic, and like he would tweet about baking and tweet about like the guy he liked.
I love that. That's so cute.
It's like, this is adorable.
Obsessed.
Yes. And so I followed them on Twitter for a while, but Twitter's kind of imploding right now, so I don't know if they're still on, but so what else you got?
Okay, I have one more that I have not finished yet, but I tried to break my mold, which, we're all going to be very surprised by that. And I picked up a nonfiction memoir history graphic novel called Wake, The History of Women-Led Slave Revolts by Rebecca Hall with art by Hugo Martinez. And it's good, but oh my gosh, I have to go so slow through it because I know you can't see this because we're on a podcast, but like this is so detailed. Oh yeah. And it's like black and white ink art that's almost reminiscent of like kind of like block printing, and it's like incredibly detailed, and there's text all throughout it, and it's a really heavy topic as well. But it's fantastic so far. I'm about a third of the way through, and it follows Rebecca Hall, the author's own research into enslaved women's history of participation in slave uprising and slave revolts. Okay. And so she does this really cool thing with like the title, and like uses a larger metaphor of how like her research and all of us live in the wake of a slave ship, basically, and how like we are all constantly entangled in it, and everything we do connects back. And so she can't separate her personal narrative of research into this from the events of the past that happened. Okay. And so that shows up in the way it's written, and like the narratives are always on top of each other and interconnected. So you're reading multiple stories at one time, which is why you have to go slow. Okay. If you're like me, I was like, I need to read everything and see everything. But it's fantastic, and it's so well done. And yeah, she talks a lot about how she has to like read between the lines of history to even find these women, and what that means to like view these records, and have to like translate them into like modern English to even understand them. But also when it says like, 24 people were executed, what people even means. Yeah,
what people means. Yeah, and when you think about it too, it's like the fact that, a lot of the slaves couldn't write or read, and so it's like,
exactly,
you have to parse out things because their narratives aren't included. And
right, they were never recorded to begin with. They were like effectively removed from history. And she gives like a really good example of that early on when she's talking about like the aftermath of a slave uprising, and how there's documentation that one of the people was spared from execution because she was pregnant. And she's like, okay, do we read this as 24 people were executed, one of them was a pregnant woman, and the rest were men? Or that there's a miscellaneous number of men, women, and others in this category, and we only know the gender of one. Kind of thing. And it's fantastic. She does such a cool job of talking about like working with primary sources and how like emotional that can be. Like I think people think you just like go into the historical society and you see a document and nothing happens to you, but it can be a very emotional experience to like touch that same paper or like see that photograph. And it's a journey. Oh my gosh. Like it's a roller coaster in a completely different way than the other ones I read. But I highly recommend it because I struggle to read nonfiction because I'm very slow when it comes to that. And I'm like, I'm that one that like maxes out the renewals. That's me. I'm your girl. But this one, it's easier in that way because it's very visual and it's like it's fairly short but it's dense and I think I'm actually going to make it through it with only one renewal, which is a record for me. But I highly recommend it if you're interested in history and you really respond to that kind of visual nature of it. It's really well done.
Cool.
And it just came out like last year.
I've had a few different patrons comment on that, and that's part of why they like the graphic novel collection is because we do have some nonfiction stuff in there, and it is a lot more accessible to them to understand some of the stuff, or, you know, because we have books on, like, what it was like to be, like, a Syrian refugee, and we have books on, you know, slavery, and we have, you know, biographies of bands or Martin Luther King, or, you know, we have all sorts of stuff. I actually took one home that I did not read, but I want to read, called Loveless and Babbage, which is about, like, the invention of the computer.
Oh, cool.
And, like, I'm like, I just didn't get around to that one, but I got some other ones. So, yeah, if you are into nonfiction, but you also struggle sometimes a little bit with the depths of a nonfiction textbook, graphic novels are a good way. And sometimes, you know, for me, sometimes that's all I need is just that little push, because it's like, oh, like, that got me into this topic, and now I can, like, I have the brain power to dig into something that's a little bit more in depth. Whereas sometimes I just, like, if it's more in depth, sometimes I might be like, okay, this is a lot, and I just have to set this aside because I don't have the time or the background knowledge to, like, really sit here and process what I am reading.
Exactly. Like, I just, like, my brain gets overloaded so fast sometimes with nonfiction, especially if it's, like, a new topic I'm less familiar with. So I love nonfiction graphic novels. I'm a big fan. There's another one that's come out recently that's been on my list for a long time. It's the one called Ducks.
Oh, okay.
My Year on the Oil Sands. And that's another nonfiction one it's super popular right now. Everyone's talking about it. But, yeah, I'm really interested in reading about it, too. Learning more.
All right. So the next one that I have is Paper Girls, which is actually a series on Amazon Prime right now. And I am a big fan of this one. It is by Brian K. Vaughan, who you might be familiar with the Saga series. He did that one. He also did Why the Last Man, which also got turned into a TV series, but got canceled after the first season, which I was very disappointed by because I love that graphic novel series, and I was really enjoying the TV series as well, because it's about, like, this guy who there's this disease that happens, and everybody, like, all men on the planet die except for him and his monkey Ampersand, because, like, all male creatures on the planet die. Everybody with a Y chromosome. And so it's about, you know, kind of what happens in society after that. And I liked the series a lot. I like the graphic novels, but then I thought it was really cool because the TV series was exploring it even more in depth through, like, our modern lens, because it addressed trans folks and how they would be affected and, like, all that sort of stuff. And so it was cool. But so, yeah, bummer that it got canceled. But anyway, Paper Girls is still on. And so Paper Girls is about these 4 girls who are paper girls in the 1980s. And one day this thing happens where, like, there's, like, this person comes through this time rift, and they all end up in another time and dimension. And they have to try and find their way back home. And so, you know, we learn a lot about them as individuals. Like, one of them is queer, but we don't find that out until, like, the second or third graphic novel, and I won't spoil anything beyond that. But there's, like, they're, like, fighting off these aliens. In the first one, when they get sent back, they, like, end up, like, fighting off these monsters in this different dimension. The art is very colorful and bright. It evokes the 1980s. And then kind of as they go along through different dimensions, they learn what's going on, because it's like there's this person in the future who's trying to change the past, and eventually it comes out that the person in the future is one of them, and then it's like, why is this person trying to change things? What happened to us? What, you know? And so, yeah, it's really cool. One of the issues, they end up, like, going back amongst the dinosaurs.
Oh my gosh. So they get sent back like more than once.
Yeah, they get sent back more than once because they'll be trying to escape a monster or something like that, and then like a time rift will like open up again.
Oh, so just jumping.
Yeah, and these people that are like, there's these people from the future that are looking for them because they're trying to get rid of a couple of them.
Interesting.
And change the past. And so these people that are jumping usually are the ones who create the time rifts, the people from the future. They jump into the past and they end up finding, them. And then when they find them, they jump them somewhere else.
Wild.
And at one point they meet their future selves. Like at one point, like 1980 something, the girls meet their like 2020 selves.
Cool.
And super weird, and they're like, wait, this is how I turned out. Like,
I can't even imagine.
I know, it's like think about what your 16-year-old self thought that you would be like when you were like 35 or whatever.
She'd roast me so hard. Oh, she would roast me.
She'd be like, what the hell happened to you?
Like, what are you wearing?
Yeah, exactly. That's like that's totally one of the conversations that happens at one point. Like, why do you look like a mom?
No, literally. Like, you look old. I am, so.
We were supposed to say cool forever. God.
You changed your hair? I don't like it.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that one eventually will come out on DVD. I don't have high hopes, though, because Prime doesn't always release their series on DVD.
Right.
And then the next two I'm going to talk about are the same exact story, but they are on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a feeling that Disney Plus is also not going to release these on DVD. But if you have Disney Plus, you might want to read the graphic novels. So we have the She-Hulk series and we have Ms. Marvel. I have not read the She-Hulk series, but I really want to because I started watching the TV series and I've been enjoying it. But I have read Ms. Marvel, and I really like Ms. Marvel because Ms. Marvel is like a different portrayal of a character than we normally see, because she is Desi, she is Muslim, and she has to navigate her new superpowers by also living in this like strict Desi family who like has no idea what she's getting up to, and she's like sneaking out at night and to go save the world, but she also has to go to prayer and like and try to explain to her friend what's going on. And I really enjoyed the first season of the show on Disney Plus, and it's following the graphic novels pretty closely. There's a couple things that are different, because like in the graphic novels, I think she gets her powers from the other Miss Marvel, like the white Miss Marvel.
Interesting.
Like there's some sort of weird thing that happens in the universe that causes this transfer of power. Right. But that's not how it happens in the TV series. The real Miss Marvel isn't in the TV series, other than that, like, Kamala Khan, the Miss Marvel in the TV series, is, like, obsessed with, like, the real Miss Marvel. She's, like, this big fangirl and, like, at one point dresses up as her, like, at a Comic-Con. And,
classic.
Like, yes, and it's got a little bit of romance, too, because her best friend is this boy named Bruno who works at the, like, corner store by her house, and he clearly has feelings for her, and she's clearly kind of oblivious about it, but also they're like besties. And but there's also that element of, she's supposed to date I think she's Pakistani. She's, supposed to marry like a Pakistani Muslim man or whatever.
Sure.
And so the, the parents' expectations, and also she's not supposed to date anybody right now at all. And Bruno's just like, you can tell that he's pining hard. Oh. And sometimes when you see her interact with him, you're like, those are some feelings.
You can see the sparks.
You can see the sparks. Yeah, there's some tension there, and I always enjoy that. It's cute, and they convey it really well both in the graphic novel and in the TV series. And again, this is another one that's like super colorful. The artist is Adrian Alfona, and they looking at the art, colorful. Like if you look at the art, like they did a really good job on the TV series of mimicking a lot of the colors and things like that in the outfits, and kind of like how you were talking about with the Lore Olympus, having different colors just kind of represent things, and just kind of trying to bring that world to life. So I'm super excited for the second season. And then the last one that I have is the Sandman, and I know a lot of people have been checking this out, and I just started watching the series. I'm like on episode 2. Really enjoying the series so far. It's on Netflix. So again, I'm hoping it'll come out on DVD, because Netflix often does. So I'm like, don't let me down, Netflix. And it is a very old series by Neil Gaiman, and it is about this guy who is the Sandman, the controller of the dream world, and he gets captured, and all of a sudden it messes up the dream world, and so kind of how, that plays out, and there's all these different magical characters, and then there's also real life characters, and the worlds mixed together, and it's, dark fantasy, urban fantasy.
Yes.
I love it.
I love a good dark fantasy.
yes, exactly.
How old is Sandman? Like the original?
The originals, yeah. They came out in the 80s, I want to say.
That they're quite...
Yeah. Let me see if it says in here. 1991 is this one, but this one I think is the, it's
like a reprinting, kind of.
Not just reprinting, but I think this one might be further down in the series. The one that I've got here. It's not like the first one.
Because it's a fairly long series too, right?
Yeah. So, and it's got it's one of those series that is a series, but then it has a little few different stories that were made that aren't necessarily tied into the main storyline. Right. And so the one that I have right now is one of those. It's not tied into the main storyline, but it's tied. How to say this story makes sense. It is tied into the main storyline, but it's not it's a little offshoot story.
Right, it's like a spin-off.
Yeah, like a spin-off. Yes, that's a good way to put it.
I was trying to think about it. It's for the fans.
Yes, it's for the fans. Yes. Occasionally we have series like that. And so the Sandman is one of those series. So.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's all that I've got. I didn't make it through as many as I wanted to because, 'tis the season.
Yeah. For sure. I also took a bunch home that I did not make it through. I took a bunch of nonfiction ones home. But I had high hopes for myself. All the ones that I took home were 2 inches thick.
Ooh.
And then other things happened. And all I got to was Redbone. But I enjoyed Redbone quite a bit. And I'm okay, well, I've read all these other ones and I have enjoyed them. And so many of them are getting turned into TV shows. And I'm very excited to see, what happens with a lot of these shows. And there's other ones that we have in the collection that, we've got The Boys. We've got, off the top of my head, what else we've got that has been turned into a series? Umbrella Academy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of these newer shows that are coming out have been graphic novels beforehand. We got, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, all the Marvel ones. We have the graphic novels that go along with them. So if you are curious if we have these series, you should definitely check it out. Check out County Cat and see, because a lot of them we do have, because I realize these shows are popular, and I want to know the correlations and how far they
Absolutely. And we have some graphic novels available digitally on Hoopla as well. You can find some in there. I know they have Heartstopper in Spanish on Hoopla. They don't have the English version, but for our Spanish-speaking listeners, super cool option.
Yeah, or if you're learning Spanish, graphic novels would be a great way, because you got the pictures there to kind of help you along to figure out what's going on.
No, that'd be really good for a Spanish learner reading Heartstopper in Spanish, because it'd be, 1, adorable, 2, very easy to understand what's going on. So great tip, Lisa.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, I think that's all the graphic novels I read lately.
As always, if you have any questions or comments for your host, you can email us at shortstacks@gmail.com. You can find us on Podbean, Spotify, or iTunes. Until next time, thanks for listening, and be well. The Shore Stacks is produced by Lisa Quintero and Lizzie Jelly for the Shore Public Library. Music for the show is by Kevin MacLeod. The song is called Ice Flow and can be found on incompetech.com.